We are Corey and Christine, two millennial moms on a mission to bring ancestral wisdom to modern motherhood.
Yay! Okay, what'd you guys think of that new intro? Because that's our new thing now. We decided to ditch the
Old, long, poor
yeah, with all the
sound
music.
quality.
Yeah, we're just gonna not have that anymore. Or at least we're gonna try not having that, and we'll see what how it goes.
Yeah, we would love everybody's opinion. What are your thoughts on just starting the show out with that new intro? You can DM us and tell us what you think, or you can rate and review and leave a comment and say, love the new intro, hate the new intro, or I don't care. But yeah, we want the ma'am community opinion, which by the way, I'm not even sure we've ever like formally said
That's
Corey
what we
and I.
call it.
Yeah, Corey and I call it ma'am all the time. All of our outlines are, say ma'am interview with.
So we wanted at some point. I think our goal always was to kind of find a acronym that could spell mama, MAMA.
Yeah,
And we
always.
tried so hard to find another A word that made sense.
Guys,
And
we even resorted to AI on this. Like, we were like, "Come on, ChatGPT, give us some clues." Yeah.
nothing made sense. Nothing felt right. So we're sticking with man.
Yep. So, welcome to the ma'am community.
Okay. So today we're gonna talk about the Senate hearing. This is just gonna be Christine and I, and we're gonna talk about the Senate hearing that just happened. But before we get into that, we have something special to offer you guys um, for the upcoming Wise Traditions conference that's happening this month in Orlando.
Yes, please come. This is the conference that nourishes you in every way. You can enjoy nutritious food, you can learn all about ancestral wisdom, meet new friends, just be inspired and feel the community that this conference offers. And if you're in Florida or Georgia, you're super close. So you should just, drive up or down or whichever way to the conference
Over.
over. It will be October 25th through the 27th in Orlando, Florida. And you will see speakers like Mary Reddick, Tom Cowan, Sally Fallon Morell, Senator Tom Massey, Zen Honeycutt. Those
Will
are
Harris.
Will Harris. These are just a few of the names that are going to be at the conference presenting. In addition to Corey and I are going to be there, and we would love to see you guys. And we have a discount code, so please use it if you are interested in attending. It is MAM25.
Hey, that works out. So MAM25, and that'll give you
$25 off.
okay. And if you have, they also offer scholarships, is all I'm trying to say. So they have volunteer scholarships that you can get if the price is still too up there. And the way you get tickets is by going to wisetraditions.org.
Org. Yes,
Org.
.org.
O-R-G. Yep.
All right.
Um, so today, like I said, we're gonna do this sort of behind
Behind
the
the meat.
mic, yeah, behind the mic episode with just Christine and I, and we're gonna be talking about the Senate roundtable that happened last month,
Mhm.
and I this is bums me out because I was actually in Maryland on the day this happened. Um,
You could
I
have gone.
desperately wanted to go, but it was my daughter's birthday.
Oh. Oh.
So
Yep. I
couldn't have
know.
done it.
Imagine saying, "Peace, I'm ditching you on your birthday. America needs me."
Right. Yeah. I know. And she's like 7, so there's not even a way to like
No.
there's no way to talk to her, no. If it was one of my other kids, if it was my older daughter who's 11 now, she probably would have been like, "Cool, let's go."
Yeah.
Um but not the 7-year-old.
No. Yeah, still too young. Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So anyway, I listened to the whole thing. It's about 4 hours of this Senate roundtable. There's a lot of applause in between speakers, so really it's probably like 45 minutes worth of applause. You could kind of skip over if you wanted to. Um, but the whole video itself, I think, is about 4 hours. And I listened to it when I was driving back from um, Maryland to Georgia. Uh, and I really wish everybody would listen to it. I wish everybody would put in the time to hear what these people have to say. But I wanted to give a little bit of an overview on who was there, what it was. So this is a roundtable that was put on by or organized by Senator Ron Johnson, who's a Republican from Wisconsin. He is one of the only senators who was against the lockdowns.
Mhm.
He is also the guy who put together a couple of years ago, he put together a roundtable with people who had adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine.
I actually remember watching that one.
That one was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, but he's one of the only guys out there doing anything kind of out of the norm
Mhm.
in the
Like health and wellness
on
space.
Capitol Hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so okay, so I'm going to read off the list of the speakers who were there. So there was Dr. Casey Means, her brother Calley Means, um, Bobby Kennedy, Jordan Peterson, Michaela Peterson Fuller, who's Jordan Peterson's daughter, Alex Clark, Vani Hari, Jillian Michaels from Biggest Loser. Do you remember her?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Max Lugavere.
I didn't know who that was.
So he's been on Rogan before. I'll tell you about him in a minute.
Okay.
Um, Dr. Chris Palmer, Brigham Buller, Brigham Bueller, because it's like Ferris Bueller, but not.
Okay.
Courtney Swan, Jason Karp, Grace Price, and Dr. Marty McCary. So you can find these people's bios on the internet. The Max Lukavere, I think is how you say his name. Sorry, but he was on Rogan recently. He made a documentary about Alzheimer's. So his mother had Alzheimer's and he watched her go through this. And he is now an advocate and a kind of a whistleblower for how Alzheimer's research is bunk, basically. It's like built
Mhm.
on false information. And and how it's basically a metabolic issue.
Mhm.
They're calling it now diabetes 3. Um, so that's who he is. Some of these other people, there's Grace Price she's what, 19?
Yeah, she's somebody we've been wanting to get on the show, actually.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
working
she's
on that.
super young. She's 19. She works, is it Traveling Jeans? I think that's her company. And she's out of Austin.
Yeah, she's in
And
college. She's she made a documentary when she was in high school
yeah,
about cancer and how it's a
exactly.
metabolic issue.
Yep.
Um, so that's amazing. Uh, who else?
You didn't even put Alex Clark on here.
Oh, I didn't say Alex. I'm sorry, Alex. You were on my list and I just didn't I'm skipped over. Um, Alex Clark too. So some of these people are uh like medical doctors. Some of them are um just citizens, activists. Like Vani Hari is just an activist. Some of these people are uh what am I trying to say? They're like they own companies that have like the guy Jason Karp is the guy who founded Hue Chocolates.
Oh,
Um, and then
I did not know that.
there's some other, there's people like Jordan Peterson and one of these other guys, might have been Chris Palmer, I can't remember, are doctors of psychiatry.
Mhm.
Um, So there's a bunch of different. There's it's not all doctors. It's not all. I mean, you say like Alex Clark and Bonnie Hari, and you're like, oh, cool. It's just like a panel of Instagrammers. It's not like, but anyway, there's a whole group of people there with different takes on this and different life experiences. So it's um, yeah, I think that's pretty cool too that it's got different people with different things to
Backgrounds.
say, yeah, on the issues. Um, did I say the title of it? The round table? I don't remember. Okay, say it again.
Yeah, no, you
Um,
did.
oh, okay.
Yeah, you said it's the American Health and Nutrition Roundtable
Okay, well,
at the Senate.
the title of it was American Health and Nutrition: A Second Opinion.
Mhm.
So, the idea that Senator Johnson had was that he wanted to bring these people together to be a second opinion to the nutrition advice that's given out from the FDA and the other organizations run by the government.
My biggest question for this entire panel, which I wish there was a way to find the answer to, I have 2. The first is, how did they choose the speakers? I mean, the speakers were incredible. How did they decide who? And then the second is, where is this going? What is happening with this information moving forward? Because while I think the health and wellness world, especially online, ignited after this panel, and so many of us were talking about it and watching it and excited for it. My fear is that it kind of gets drowned with the overshadowing election and just like some of the other issues that are going on in our modern day society in America.
Yeah. Um,
So who knows? I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I do. I was actually thinking we would wait to talk about this till the end, but
Oh, sorry.
no, that's okay. I think that so this morning when I was trying to do some more research on this before we started recording, I, just Googled. I'm not using Google, so don't get mad at me because, but like Googled in the term of a verb.
Yes.
Um, I typed in something like Senator Ron Johnson, or Senator Johnson health panel or something. And
Mhm.
then I actually typed in the title of the health panel. And truly, there was almost nothing that came up from any of the
Oh,
news platforms. There was like a couple, health and wellness type platforms that were talking about it, and almost nothing from the major news outlets. So that's disappointing. Um, so I don't know. I think Calley means at the very end, you can go listen to it at the very end. I think the timestamp was like 3:38 or something like that. Oh, a side note on the full length video from I think it was from Fox's airing of the talk.
mhm.
Somebody commented, if you slide down in the comments, somebody commented the timestamps of when all the speakers were starting. So that's really helpful if you
Oh.
want to just like skip through. So anyway, towards the very end, Callie Means was talking about the corruption in just like over the whole thing, but he specifically was talking about the corruption of the news outlets
Mhm.
and how much funding they're getting from pharmaceuticals and why would they give that up? Why would they do something that would compromise or jeopardize that funding for them? I mean,
That is atrocious. That is atrocious. I can't remember if House and Habit talked about this or not, but she needs to. She should write an entire Substack article on it for her
yeah,
listeners.
I don't know
But
if that's her purview or not.
I mean, yeah, she is an independent journalist, so she could cover different things. But
Yeah, yeah. She just does that doesn't necessarily seem to be something she would be interested in.
Yeah, I know.
Um anyway, okay. So um
Corey,
yeah.
tell us some of your thoughts on, for example, how about Jason Karp? Let's start with him.
So I'd never heard of him before. He apparently is friends with Vani Hari. Oh, that's another thing. Like going back to what you asked, how it came about. I'm pretty sure that Senator Johnson contacted RFK Jr. and said, "Hey, I want to put this together." RFK got in contact with Calley Means, and Calley kind of went, "All right, who can we get here?"
Mhm.
That's my understanding of the of piecing together clues. That's how they got it picked out who was going to speak. Um, So there we go. Okay, so Jason Karp is friends with Bonnie Hari. He was talking about. He went right after her. Her whole speech was about how, and if you follow her on her platforms, you know that a lot of what she talks about is like, here's the ingredients list for Europe, here's the ingredients list for the United States.
Yeah.
You know, so she was talking about that in her speech, um, which is so effective. I think when you see those lists, and then he then went on to talk about food dyes and talking about how um, the and kind of he was talking about it kind of from a the perspective of a business owner, of somebody who makes, because he's the one who has Hue Chocolate, right?
Yeah.
So somebody who makes decisions about what products or what ingredients to use and how to source those ingredients, and all of these things. So he was talking about it from that perspective, which I think is really interesting, and I'm glad they included somebody like that on the panel. um, but he was talking about how some of the other things that people were suggesting doing, like banning seed oils, other, I don't like glyphosate, this kind of stuff. Like he was saying, like there's maybe a back and forth discussion to be had on pros and cons with these ingredients, with these other ingredients. But food dyes pretty much there's no discussion. Like there's pretty much nobody saying that they are good for you. There's no research that supports that one way. Like there's only research that says it's bad, basically.
Well, the FDA considers it gras, however you say it, generally regarded as safe.
So what he was saying is that the if we attack at food dyes, that is kind of like a sure way to win, basically.
Oh.
So he's saying we need to start somewhere that we can win, and I think it's really smart because he's saying like we got to start somewhere. We're not going to get all these things done all at once, and food dyes are easy
Hmm.
for certain for multiple reasons. One being that there's almost no research that suggests they're good for you. There is solid research that suggests they are harmful, and these food companies, which is something that Bonnie Hari was saying, the companies that are making these cereals or other things, Skittles, already have the formulations to make these foods without the dyes because they're
Mhm.
already doing it for other countries. So all they have, it won't, we won't lose jobs. We won't lose, we don't have to re-infrastructure. There's no changing of infrastructure. It's just switching over the formulations. So I'm sure it's not technically that simple.
Yeah.
Um, but it's better than having to completely reformulate your entire company or products.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree with that. I feel like food dyes are 100% unnecessary. They do absolutely nothing for the food except give the public a false idea of what a food product looks like. And not only just people in general, but specifically children, so that a child has this image in their mind that a cupcake has to have bright blue and green and I don't know, yellow, whatever. So if it is colored naturally, they freak out and they're like, "Why isn't it, X, Y, and Z color?" Or yeah, I don't know. It's apparently, you were saying that Governor Newsom is banning red 40, yellow 5, 6, blue 1, blue 2, and green. Wow. From
Yes.
meals, drinks, and snacks served at public schools nationwide.
No, statewide. He's in,
Statewide, statewide,
yeah,
statewide, obviously.
he's
Yes.
in California.
Yeah, I know. Thank
Um,
you, Christine.
yeah, so he is, yeah, there's conversation to be had about that. Um, I'm not sure exactly what's in the bill. I just grabbed a little bit of information from an NBC article that I found. Um, this is one of those things that like sounds like a really good thing, and I hope it is. I hope it is a really good thing. That's kind of all I have on that.
Yeah,
But it did happen after this panel. So, you know, did it did it spawn from did it was he because it was already in the works, obviously. It was a bill that was
totally.
put forth in their state.
Yeah.
But like was he did he get like a little kick in the pants to make it happen to sign the bill because of this? Maybe. Um yeah, I don't know. Again, like I wish so here's something interesting, right? Like I wish we could as a country just say we don't want this stuff in our food anymore and then just stop have the company stop making it. Um
There needs to be some form of like a march or um in the same way that Americans have marched for so many other things. We need to bring people together and it needs to be health for America.
okay. We'll
How do
talk
we
to
organize?
Zen
Yeah.
Honeycutt.
I was about to say, how do we organize that, Corey? How can we put this together?
I mean, so
Let's
here's
go
my
to DC
question.
and walk for health for Americans and for children. Hello.
I know. Um
I just want to put that out there. Folks, if anybody has any connections to how we can put this together, I will be there.
are you going to organize it?
I don't know how to organize something like that. But maybe we should ask Zen at the conference. Maybe we should tell her. And I mean, who else would be at the conference? Oh, maybe Tom Massey,
Yeah, Senator Massey.
Senator Massey. I mean, I
There's
don't
a
know.
lot. Yeah. The thing is that like from my perspective, I have been so pro just education, 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 grassroots. Like we can't force people. I'm such a libertarian when it comes to this. Like I don't want to force people to, not be able to buy the food that they want. Like I don't want to ban things necessarily. But then, you get people like Callie Means talking about the corruption in all of our three-letter agencies and how they're never going to ban these things because they are in the pockets of the big food companies and the big ag companies and the big pharma companies, and they're never going to say you guys can't have these um dyes or whatever because that would shoot them in the foot politically or with their careers in general. So um yeah, I think this is a conversation, but I also still want to say to people like this, you still need to be voting with your dollar on this. Like, this is not just because that we're starting to see movement in banning harmful ingredients doesn't mean that we're not still personally responsible.
Mm, that's a great takeaway. We are all, parents especially, still personally responsible for the food that we're putting on the table for our children and how we're nourishing them. And I think that we just can't let our guard down, unfortunately. We don't live in time and an era in which that is an option.
Yeah. I think one thing that along that line that is really good that's happening is Vani Hari constantly has these petitions going.
Mhm.
Right now, she's got one that she's taking to Kellogg on October 15th. And I mean, speaking of a march, like she's kind of doing a march on the
Yeah.
Kellogg headquarters on
I think it's
October 15th.
in Michigan, right? If I remember
You're
correctly?
right.
Yeah.
In Michigan
Yes.
sounds right. Um, and she's invited the presidential candidates to be there. I'm hoping somebody makes like shows up. I don't care who, just somebody show up.
Yeah.
Um, and she's inviting whoever wants to come to show up and be present so that they see not just signatures on a page, which I've signed it. If you want to go sign it, you can go find her, find that.
We'll put that link in the show notes so that you guys can sign it.
Right. But so that the Kellogg's execs don't just see names on a page, but they also see people standing outside of their office um, to make a big impact. So, there are things like that. That I like that more because it doesn't involve the government telling people what to do.
Mm.
That's more of a grassroots thing. So I don't know.
That's a good
That's
point. No, that's a very good point that you're making. That if moms, people, parents, anybody, can we just go to these companies and say, "We don't like the ingredients that you're using in these food products."
yeah.
I mean, the flip side to that is they could say, "Just don't buy our products then."
Right. And most of us don't. Right. So
Exactly.
we're not their customers anyway.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
probably wouldn't be, truthfully, like I'm not buying Kraft mac and cheese regardless of whether they're using dyes or not.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, I will occasionally buy Annie's, even though I know it's owned by whoever, big Kraft. I think Kraft might own it. I don't know. Doesn't really matter.
I know, I'm trying
Um,
to think who owns Annie's.
but I will buy the ones that don't have, there's no dye. I buy the organic ones, like, and I'm not buying them very often. So again, I'm not necessarily their target audience.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and this is something that Alex Clark was talking about. She did such a good job. She's super passionate. But she said something along the lines of like she listed out all these things like that American mothers are dealing with. So they're talking about like she was talking about the vaccine schedule. She was talking about the rising rates of obesity and autism and ADHD and um, other learning disabilities and early uh, childhood puberty
Mm.
and then the food dyes and the seed oils and the like she just listed all this stuff and then she said, does this sound overwhelming to you? It should sound overwhelming to you. Like, this is what the American mother deals with every single day, making choices about these things, having to research these things, not being able to trust what the government says about it, and then having to do other research and then being told they're crazy or
Mhm.
losing their pediatrician because they're asking too many questions or they're not following the schedule or they're not being compliant, like all these things falls on the American mom. Sometimes dads are involved, but truthfully, most of the time they're not. Most of the time, it's falling on the mom, and moms are so overwhelmed, and having to then go to the grocery store and have your kids beg for Lucky Charms, and you're already stressed out, and you're already at the point of like just decision fatigue from the
Mhm.
day and you're just there at like 4 o'clock and you're like, I just came to get a rotisserie chicken and a bag of salad so I can make dinner. I don't care, just get the cereal,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so that's where you kind of go, oh, like yes, it falls on us to make the choices on what to buy. And yes, we need to be educated and we need to be trying our best and voting with our dollars. But I also then recognize, It is hard. It's really hard.
Mm. Yeah.
And if we're trusting, like we trust our government to be if okay, here we go. Spicy Corey. If we have these organizations that are giving the green light to these ingredients, then they need to be doing their jobs. If we didn't have those organizations, it would be a different story. Like you would be expected to have to do your own research, right? But the average parent is saying, okay, well, we have these, we have the FDA, we have the USDA. We assume that they're doing the best thing for our country. I, I don't think necessarily like our small ma'am or health community is doing this, but I think moms at large are have this mindset of if we have these organizations, then they must be doing something to regulate safe food practices. And they're not.
I mean, I agree with you. I have, like, no other comment to make. I completely agree with you. Um, yeah, you talked about how the FDA takes an innocent until proven guilty approach to food additives. So, basically, they're saying everything is safe until it's proven toxic,
Which
which
can take
is which
years.
can take years, and I think an important note to make on this is most of the research that's done on this is not done it's all in isolation. So it's saying yellow number 6, only yellow number 6 is not as safe for us because of X, Y, and Z. We're not talking about the cumulative effect
Or
of
is safe for us at low levels.
right, low levels. We're not talking about the cumulative effect of yellow number 6 plus glyphosate plus carrageenan plus red number 40. Like we're not talking about all of
Over
these.
the course of 5 years.
Exactly, exactly. That's why and the interesting thing is this is exactly how the medical establishment operates. It is a reductionist model. It reduces everything down to like the one specialty instead of looking at everything as a whole. And this is why it drives me nuts when people say things like, well, but the toxic burden of X, Y, and Z product is so and so percent. Like it's not that bad. Or, when there is pushback on accounts like is it Mamavation or something
I
or
don't know that one.
Zen Honeycut talking about, the heavy metals in school lunches kind of thing. Like they're saying, "Oh, but it's not that bad." But that's not the truth. We are not looking at the bigger picture of everything that is affecting us. Exactly what Alex Clark said. It is not just one ingredient. We are so past that. It's the thousands of ingredients that, for goodness sakes, it's the flipping receipts that you can't even touch at the grocery store because they're loaded with endocrine disruptors. Like, are you
How did we
kidding
get
me?
here?
Yes.
How did we get here?
Seriously. Like, I don't know.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And this is why it's so difficult to be a mom in 2024. Like our moms, even if they were more health conscious like mine was, still did not have, first of all, they didn't have all the information
Yeah.
that we have now. They didn't have the internet. But they also didn't, the food was not the same. Maybe it wasn't the same in like the 70s, and it by the time you and I were kids in the 90s, it was as it is now. But like it's so overwhelming at this point, and that's why I kind of feel like I have such a heart for American moms, millennial moms, Gen Z moms who are waking up going, I ate Fruity Pebbles every day as a child, but I know that that's not the right thing to do for my kid, but I don't know how to do this otherwise. Like, what else do I feed them for breakfast? Um, and I have such a heart for that because, like, yes, how do you know what to do? Um, if, the only thing you ever did was eat Fruity Pebbles for breakfast, and maybe you rotated it with Lucky Charms or something, but like, and skim milk,
Compassion is the word that's coming to mind. So much compassion and empathy for all the moms out there struggling on a daily basis to make the right choices and the best choices for them in whatever life situation they're in. And this is going back to Modern Ancestral Mama's mission. This is one of the reasons why Corey and I started this podcast, because we felt like there wasn't anything out there that has a form of, community and education and just like this camaraderie of, hey, you're not in it alone. Corey and I are in the trenches with you. We're literally doing the exact same thing. We also go to the grocery store and look at ingredient labels. Like, we're also trying to feed our families day in and day out, 3 times a day kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
And I take my kids with me to the grocery store and they still ask me to buy them stuff. And I'm
yes,
like, I literally have never bought that in your entire life.
I know, that's the hilarious part is like you're so right. Like, no, I've never bought this. Like, why are you asking
Why
me to
would it
buy?
change now?
Yeah. Like, now I can overhear the commentary between my older two where they're like, "You should ask mom." "No, you ask mom." "No, she's not gonna say yes," like
Yes, my kids do the same thing. And it's always my older daughter who gets elected and she'll be like, "Ugh, I'll do it." But then there are sometimes they'll ask me things like, "Hey mom, can we buy some chocolate?" And or they'll be like having a little conversation and they'll be like, "No, she'll never say yes. She's never gonna say yes. She won't do that." And I'm like, "Did you guys want some chocolate?" And they're like,
Mm.
"What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll buy
Okay.
chocolate. Like chocolate's not a big deal." Um, anyway,
That's so funny. I mean,
I'm not buying the Lucky Charms.
no, no.
That they're right about. They shouldn't even ask.
Guys, listeners, friends, leave us a comment. We wanna know, do your kids do the same thing? I'm so curious. Like, have you experienced this with your own family? We'd love to know.
Or are you a lucky person that gets to go grocery shopping alone?
Yes, truth, truth. Do you get to peruse the aisles without your children? One time I went to the grocery store and now I go to I'm at the point where I go to this pretty much the same 2 or 3 and I see the same people all the time. It's in my neighborhood. And the lady was like, "Oh, you don't have your kids with you today." I'm like, "Yep, I do not."
It's funny. She recognized you.
Wait, there's a quote here that Dr. Palmer said that I think is so interesting and needs to be read.
Yeah, so Dr. Palmer is a
He's a psychiatrist.
psychiatrist, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. He said the human brain is an organ too. And when brain metabolism is impaired, it can cause symptoms that we call mental illness. It is no coincidence that the rates of obesity and diabetes are skyrocketing, and so too are the rates of mental illness. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've heard it. I think Janine has said this before. So, Awfully Good Cooking, that she thinks, this is just her own humble opinion, that all disease has 2 root causes. The first is metabolic dysfunction, and the second is a nutrient deficiency. And I have to say, I think you're onto something, Janine. Like, I completely agree, because now we are seeing tons of evidence pop up, and it was talked about in this Senate round hearing about how much metabolic health affects everything, guys. And this goes back to, we have to start paying attention to the macronutrients that we're feeding our kids, like, just, like, really basic things. We can't be feeding our kids straight carbs. Um, gotta pair it with a fat or a protein. Really paying attention to the sugar content if you are choosing a packaged food or even if you're baking something at home. Just being conscientious of, all right, if something calls for a cup of sugar, know that that recipe is designed for the modern American palate, and that's way too much sugar. Cut it. You can cut it if cutting the full cup is sounds intimidating, cut it by 3/4, cut it by half, like, start wherever you can, but really reducing sugar and focusing on protein and fat. I don't know. I don't know what.
Yeah,
Can I just say that RFK is so impressive? I mean,
totally.
the way that he can spew all of these statistics in a coherent and better than I can right now. I don't know. It's very impressive to hear him talk about the health and wellness side of things, and I so appreciate that people are doing
Well,
this. Politicians are doing this.
and he is, I mean, he's not necessarily a politician, but like he
What? What do you mean
he's
he's not necessarily a politician? Of course he is.
he's not. He's never held any political office.
Politician by association?
Yes, yes. He comes from a politician family, obviously. um
Political family, yes.
Political dynasty really. But he's a lawyer. He's not a politician,
No, I know, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
which, they're very closely intertwined. But um
He said one of his quotes was, "The most valuable asset in America right now is a sick child."
yeah.
Let that sink in, folks. The sicker we are, the more
They make off of us.
yeah, yeah, the more they make off of us, and it's crazy how it starts
And the
in
kids,
in utero.
yeah, this you've got sick kids, you've got a patient for life,
Mhm.
customer for life.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things Cali means is fighting against is this Ozempic starting at 6 years old for obese 6-year-olds. I
Oh
mean,
my, yeah.
obese 6-year-olds just, like, it blows my mind.
It's,
Come on.
it's
How did
unreal.
yeah, like, how did we get to this? How can you it's crazy to think that I mean, actually, I think it might be changing in the animal world too. But in the past, if an animal got sick, the first thing you would look at is, well, what did they eat?
Mhm.
And yet we don't do that with humans. The first time somebody gets sick, we say, take this pill.
So I think one of the things that is interesting um, in the health community, okay, is that I think that in general, up until recently, and I mean within the last like 5 to 7 years recently, maybe 10 years, the health community has been focused on weight, right? Like the only
Mhm.
reason to eat healthy, whatever that was, whatever that meant, eat healthy, was to lose weight. There was all in my experience, maybe, or my observation, there was hardly any conversation about eating healthy for
For
function.
health purposes.
Right, right. Yeah, for a functioning body, functioning brain, functioning systems, Um, there was almost no conversation about that. And oftentimes people will say things or did, I don't maybe they still do, say things like, "Oh, well, they're kids, their metabolism can handle it." You know? Um And problem is, we're experiencing this as a culture. It doesn't it's not that they're gonna necessarily gain weight right away, although that has totally shifted because I think like
Mhm.
50% of children are overweight, which is an unbelievable amount. Um, but regardless, the facts are that yes, they may be able to burn it off, burn off the calories,
Mhm.
especially if they're athletes. But like the problem is that we're compounding things. We
Mhm.
keep adding and we keep adding and keep adding, and every day, if you're eating, even if it's not a necessarily sugary cereal in the morning, say you're just eating Cheerios, okay? You get a
Mhm.
glyphosate bomb, and you're probably not drinking, have your kids are probably not having it with whole milk. So then they're having a glucose spike, and they're not
Mhm.
getting the nutrients from the whole milk because the nutrients have been removed, or they maybe not haven't been removed, but the fats that go along with the vitamins have been removed. So then the vitamins can't be absorbed.
Mhm.
And then at lunch, they're having another blonde meal. And then at dinner, they're having something that might be more um, like meat and potatoes or something, which is a great meal, but like you're putting um, canola oil in to cook the beef, or whatever else, like a flavor packet, or to make um, like gravy, you're using one of those gravy packets and stuff. Like that has all these other things in it that are harmful. So it's not just, oh, well, they can have the cupcake at the birthday party. It's that they are every day,
Mhm.
basically, you're assaulting their systems every single day with every single meal. And this is not even to mention throwing in goldfish and Capri Suns, and like after the
Yeah,
baseball practice, you get a little snack cake with a juice box. I don't, it's like,
it's compounding.
it's
Everything.
compounding. And then by the time you're 25 and you want to have a baby, you can't because
Mhm.
um your systems have been disrupted for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And even beyond that. 25 years if you're 25.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that idea that you said of, "Oh, well, we have this belief that kids have fast metabolisms and they can just burn through it," kind of thing. When I think I can't remember, if either Casey or Kaylee talked about it. Callie. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But, there is the issue now too is women are pregnant and having metabolic dysfunction. And so then that's being passed on to their child. So, I mean, both Casey and Callie were probably their mom had gestational diabetes, and it was just like, they were applauded for being large babies. And that's not to say, women can't have healthy large babies, but there is a problem of metabolic dysfunction being passed on to the baby, and we're just not even aware. We just, like, don't even know, and so we're already setting that child up for failure.
Then
Um,
even if we do know, because we have come, a long ways with gestational diabetes.
yeah,
But like the the diet that they're prescribing to patients with gestational diabetes, or the pills and stuff, like
yeah,
it doesn't actually fix anything or heal anything or help anything. I mean, that's what
yeah,
Lily Nichols talks about all the time. I wish she had been on that panel.
I know.
Um, that actually would have been really good for her, or good for that panel to have her. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, I should
um,
talk about fertility and all that,
yeah,
and as a registered dietitian. Ugh,
yeah.
yeah,
So I think big picture, hopefully, this is a
so
good thing.
something comes from this.
Yeah.
Big picture, we want a march.
I don't want to plan a march. I'm just gonna say that I
Who's
don't want to plan
who's
it.
who's gonna put that on, guys?
I'll
Make
show
it
up. I'll
happen.
wear my shirt, but I don't want to plan it.
Totally.
Um, Even if it's, listen, I will show up even if it's like January in DC, I will still show
Oh,
up.
yeah, totally. I would fly out there for that. Just putting that out there into the universe right now. Um,
Okay.
kind of along the same subject. I don't know if you had any more thoughts about the panel, if there's anything else. Oh, Corey actually had her kids watch part of it, and I think that that is absolutely brilliant. You guys, it's so important that our kids start learning about this now. And I think it becomes part of your family food values. You know, we've talked about family food values before. This is a piece of it, is letting them see history in action and experts talk about why this is so important. Because for any of those homeschooling parents out there, we know that oftentimes our kids will listen to other people more than their own parents.
Yeah. So I only
Um,
had them watch Dr. Casey Means talk, and I had them watch Bonnie Hari's talk. So I
mm,
just skipped and only had them watch those two. And my son, and I only made, I mean, they were all sitting there, but like the two little girls weren't really paying attention, just the older two.
yeah.
But oh no, you know what? We also watched Jason Karp, and his is right after Bonnie Hari's
Okay.
because they really piggyback on each other, and it was good information. But my son was like, I don't care, I don't want to watch this, and he's just like dropped it. But my daughter, she's 11, and she's the one that struggles with ADHD sort of uh, things. She was talking. We've had multiple conversations since watching this over a week ago, talking about all the things that she's been thinking about after watching
Mm,
this. So it has opened up a whole lot of conversations for us to be able to, for her to be able to understand and digest what was said and how it affects her. And so, yeah, I mean, I think those three speeches are probably the best ones to watch, even
mhm,
with kids around that sort of middle school age.
mhm. Yeah. So highly recommend if you can letting your kids watch some of those speeches. Can we just transition for a quick second and talk about the oh wait, I have okay, side story. I have a funny story about Kaylee and Kat Casey and Callie means. I don't know what it is about their names. I cannot do it. But anyway, I when we were coming back from Colorado earlier this year and driving, we listened to their joint interview, which right now there's only one joint interview with them on Tucker Carlson.
Although there's another one coming out next week.
Exactly. Yes, I'm so excited for there to be another one of the two of them together,
I think it's next month.
which will be coming out with Joe Rogan. And anyway, so I'm listening to this, and my husband and I both listened to it, and he was completely blown away by it as well. I mean, we both know a lot of the information that was already stated in their interview, but it's still to hear it again. It just half of it is jaw dropping. Like you're just like, I cannot believe this. But anyway, I was like, you know what? She sounds really familiar. I think I've heard her before already. And I went back to Barry Weiss's Honestly podcast and I scrolled all the way back to 2022 to an episode called Eating Ourselves to Death.
I
And
know
I
what you're
was like,
talking about. I've
I
listened to
have
that.
already heard her. I know who this is. And when I heard that episode 2 years ago, back in 2022, I literally sent it to everybody that would listen because I was like, this chick understands. Like, she knows what's up. And
That's so funny. You sent it to me, and I listened to it when I was driving to the Wise Christians conference.
Yeah. And I was just like, why are more people not talking about this? And so, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I feel kind of cool that like 2 years ago, I was like, I already knew who Casey Means is. Like, she's already talking about this stuff. Like, more people need to have her on. It's crazy that it's taken 2 years
Yeah, I was gonna say
for
that.
her to really blow up and this information to get out. Like, I think that that just says how slowly all of this surfaces. But
Yeah, no, I think you're
yeah.
completely right. It's very slow, and then it seems like it blows up, but it is like slowly coming about. Um, and so much of what the Weston A. Price Foundation does is building a foundation for all of this other stuff to be happening. You know,
Yeah.
um, like if Sally hadn't written her book,
Mhm.
however many years ago that was,
In 2000 at this point, she wrote that book came out in 2000, so it's been 24 years since her book came out.
um, so yeah, I mean, if she hadn't written that book, which she told us a story at one point about how she felt like called
Mm.
to write that book. I don't think that conversation ended up on the show because that was the one that was lost. But
It didn't end up on the show, but it's on the podcast panel that I was on
okay,
last year in 2023, and the story gives me chills
yeah,
every time I hear it. I mean, it's just
she
like,
has this
wow.
like spiritual calling essentially to write this book, which is just amazing. That she then did it, which was obviously a huge feat because it's a ginormous book. Um, so anyway, I think that you and I have been talking about this for years and years. And I actually at one point was watching I was watching the episode with on Tucker, and I kind of looked at my husband and I'm like, I have literally been saying this for years. And he's like, I
Yeah,
know, but like we needed the culture needed something to happen, and it needed to be these people. Like it had to be these people saying it.
I know.
And I'm not like upset that it's not me. Like I don't care about that. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what I was frustrated about is that it's like this information is not new and everybody's acting like it's new.
Oh, totally,
I'm just
totally.
like annoyed in the moment, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it is
You
happening.
you
But
felt so validated. That's how I feel. I feel so validated that now there are quote unquote experts talking about it. And it's not so much that they're experts, but it's that they have been in the system and they have seen how the system is corrupt and they have lived through it. And I think that's why there is so much buzz around them and why their story can hopefully help change the conversation for the better. Because we're not just talking about random people. These are, I mean, for goodness sakes, she was in Stanford Medical School all the way up until year 9. Like, that's insane to say, you know what? I'm throwing it all away because I see how messed up this is. It almost makes me wonder, are there other doctors out there that think the same? Or are they just so brainwashed? Or maybe even just at so tired from studying and trying to make ends meet and things like that, that they can't even, they're just trying to get to the end goal, that degree, that practice, whatever it is. Like, how is it that there has to be more doctors out there that are aware,
I
that
think
wake up and see that this is totally manipulated. You're not actually creating health.
I think there's a couple things in that. I think there definitely are doctors who she's not the only one.
Mhm.
Like I know my parents had their doctor is a medical doctor, but he was like, this isn't working. And so then he went and is also now like a naturopath. But so I think that is the thing. But I think that you made a really good point about how they are just, I mean, how many doctors have you met that are this goes back to like, conflating weight with health, and I'm sorry about that, but like how many doctors have you met that don't look physically well? Even if you just look at like their
Tons.
eyes and like
Tons.
their skin
Yes.
tone. Um, they just like they're so busy, they're so overwhelmed. I'm sure it's really stressful. Can you imagine having to like, especially a pediatrician who's having to deal with sick children? That would be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, but also, they're told, and this was talked about out on this panel. Doctors are told that Americans don't care enough to change their habits.
Mm.
They are told Americans won't do anything to change their habits. And I had a friend who was in medical school who I had a conversation about this with. And I was like, I don't understand. Why aren't you doing something? Like, why don't you
Mhm.
say something to your patients? And she's like, my patients won't listen. I'm like,
Mm.
but on the panel, Calley Mean said something that was really important. And he said that Americans listen to their doctors, they listen to experts.
Mhm.
When the Surgeon General came out in the 80s and said smoking is bad for you, smoking plummeted. Okay? But yet, when the FDA put out the food pyramid in the 90s, people followed it. They do, I mean, maybe you and I don't, but a lot of people listen to those things, you know?
Yeah.
And it is important in for how they make their choices.
Mhm.
And it's important for, like the FDA's nutritional guidelines are what uh, makes the school lunches. It's what makes the SNAP program,
Mhm.
approves what's available on the SNAP program and WIC and all of these things. So, what the government says and what the doctors say in our country is important. And I don't think Americans want to be sick. I don't know anybody who's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I mean, there's going to be some of those influencers out there who are like literally eating themselves to death. Have you seen that? That's crazy. Um, they're literally influencers who are like eating themselves to death. There's been a couple who have actually died because like their whole channel is them eating junk food. It's very weird. Um,
I had no idea.
it's very weird. And they've literally, two or three of them have actually died at like young ages. I don't like, it's again with the like conflating health and weight is dangerous to do, but I don't know anybody in real life, if they're honest, who wants to be sick, who wants to feel crummy all the time, who wants their children to not be able to play soccer because they can't keep up. Like,
Yeah.
nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're told these cereals are safe and, you know, this food is safe and it's approved by the three letter agencies. So it's okay to eat. There's a there's a disconnect happening, like people know sugar's not good for you, whatever, but like then we have the nutritionist saying, well, but it's actually, sugar is just energy. And so again, it's like this whole, there's so many layers, which is why I think it's really difficult to have to like lay out a plan of how to attack
Mhm.
this. Um, and that's why I also think grassroots is probably the best way to do it. But again, because of what, we've already said multiple times, I guess, that it's difficult from a grassroots perspective because so many moms are just so overwhelmed.
Mhm. Yeah. Should we transition over to the hot topic of the week, which is the Siete and Pepsi merger?
Yeah, what do you think about that? Well,
Since
maybe explain what
everybody
happened.
is talking about this. Okay, if you have been living under a rock, Siete was recently purchased by PepsiCo for $1.2 billion. That is billion with a B. And obviously, this very small family owned company just won the lottery. Which, I think there's something to be said about the American dream and the American spirit
Yeah, aren't
that
they an immigrant family?
they are.
Good for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's incredible. I don't care what everybody else says. It takes cajones to be able to do stuff like that. So, that's really I think it's really cool. And pretty much everybody that I've seen online is talking about it. And there's one of two opinions. They're either pissed off that they were bought out by a bigger company, or
That they
they,
go ahead.
what? Oh, yeah, pissed off that they were bought out by a bigger company, or really happy because now this means their product can be accessible to more people. So I feel like there's those two camps of where people are falling in this merger
I think
news.
the other camp, maybe this is a sub camp of your first camp, but it's like that people are angry that Siete sold out.
Yes, exactly. Like that's how they see it. Um, which, Corey and I were curious and brought up a list, just like quickly looked up a list of other companies that have done the same thing. And you've got Hue on there, which is Jason Karp's company. You have Bragg's ACV. You have Primal Kitchen. We have Annie's Mac and Cheese. Like these are just a few of these food companies that were all bought out by bigger companies. And it's important to note that we as the public are not privy to the details of the contract. So, we don't know. We don't know if that means that part of the agreement is that the ingredients have to stay the same, the sourcing has to stay the same,
Because they could
whatever
put
it
that in their
is.
contract.
Totally, totally. They could totally say that. And it could be for a year, it could be 5 years, who knows? Who knows? But I actually think that, like most things in life, it's a double-edged sword because while the benefit of Siete being bought out by Pepsi is that more people now have access to seed oil-free chips because now Pepsi can distribute it wider and to more grocery store chains and stuff like that. The other side of that is that means increasing production. And that means monocropping even more because that means, think about what their chips are made of. They're made out of cassava, they're made out of corn, and they're made out of
Avocado.
avocado. So there you go. Those are the three main ingredients. So now we're going to have to monocrop avocado even more, corn even more, and cassava even more.
Yeah, and they're not
And
organic.
no, no, yeah, exactly. None of their products are organic. So, yes, it is a better option. And also, I think this is the issue, one of the issues with scaling up is the mass production aspect of it. And now suddenly, I mean, we're already mass producing avocados and destroying parts of Mexico so that people in the US can have avocados
Yeah, in
in,
California.
yeah, yeah, true, California as well, in like the most random times of year. I mean, you can get a avocado all year round here in the US. Um,
Yeah, I
there's
don't
a
even know what avocado season is. What is avocado season? No idea.
I should know this, but I don't. I'm married to a Mexican. But
Okay. Does he automatically know what avocado season is just because
I
he's
know, right?
Mexican?
It was a poor generalization. Um, wait, I was gonna say something about this, which was now I lost my train of
Oh,
thought. It was about the
sorry.
no, it's okay. It was about the monocropping thing.
Um,
Um,
so there are obviously other chip brands out there.
oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But anyway,
Okay, go ahead.
no, I okay. I have talked to here locally some of our own small company producers. For example, there is a guy that he soaks and sprouts all of his nuts and he makes granola. He's here, he sells at Whole Foods. here in the Dallas area. His company is Nate's Raw Harvest. He's on the Weston A. Price shopping guide. Okay. So I've had conversations with him before about if he were to scale up, the quality of his product would go significantly down. And they're a small family run business again. They have no interest in scaling up because of that reason, because for them, their values are the most important thing is the quality of his product. He even told me that Go Raw, which is the brand that has like the pumpkin seeds, is like they're horrible as far as quality goes. Like he said they meet the bare minimum, which I thought was really interesting. And that's one. And then another one is a guy that was making ferments, the most incredible ferments here in the Dallas area with the highest ingredients you can imagine. I mean, this guy was like pristine with his choice of ingredients. And he said the exact same thing to me. I cannot keep making this because people are asking me to make more and more ferments. And he was growing and growing. But in order to grow, he would have had to compromise the quality of his ingredients. And that was not important to him. He did not want to do that. And so he decided to keep his company small and eventually shut it down because it was just like the demand for the growth was so high. And in his mind, it wasn't worth it. All of that to say, we, I think, have to stay vigilant. And it's okay to buy these foods every once in a while, but at the end of the day, Siete chips and all Siete products are still a processed food. Are they better than some of the other options? Yes. Do they have slightly better ingredients? Yes. But it is still a packaged processed food with more than, 5 ingredients on it and should not make up the bulk of our diet, um, in my personal opinion. And we just need to know that even though it might be beneficial that it was acquired by a larger company, it's very likely that the quality of their product will go down just because of mass production. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Um, no, I think you're right. I think that in general, I'm sure that's true about quality. I mean, the whole thing, I'm not going to stop buying their chips. It's not.
Yeah.
But also, I don't buy them all the time.
Yeah.
And they're expensive, you
I
know?
know. I know.
Um, so yeah, they're just not on our rotation all that often. Yeah, I can see all sides of the argument, but I also,
Totally.
for the
Yeah.
most part, I kind of am like, good for them.
Yeah.
That's mostly where I come down on it.
I know I've seen a few funny memes of like influencers in their kitchen saying, "Don't mind me, just thinking up of the next $1.2 billion food business."
Right?
Like this is everybody's dream, totally. Like what can we make and turn into money?
Probably they're all still working for the company, you know? Like that's amazing for their
Yeah.
family and that whole all of their employees. That's
Yeah.
wonderful for them.
Yeah.
Um, and they're I think they're made in the I don't know if they're made in the U.S. I'm not gonna quote that, but like still, it's an American
Yeah.
run company. That's great. We want more
Yeah.
of that. Um, so anyway, lots of different things. Okay, you had some as we're wrapping up here, you had some uh notes that people sent you that you wanted to read. These were not left on the comment on the what's it called?
Yeah, the
Reviews.
reviews, that's the technical word for it.
They were sent personally to Christine, which is lovely. But also, please leave a review.
Yes. We can't emphasize enough. When you guys leave reviews, the show becomes discoverable for other people. And it's also a very easy way to support the podcast. Right now we don't have any sponsors. We're not paid for this kind of thing. Our payment is the reviews and rating our podcast. So please help us.
Actually, there is a new review. So you read yours and then I'll read this one.
Okay. So this was a DM that I got from a follower who basically said, I have been binge listening to your podcast and I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Over the past few months, I've been transforming my family's health, and I can't thank you enough for your show. So,
It's really sweet.
yes, we appreciate your reaching out to us. Okay, what's the new review?
Okay, so it says, so informative and empowering. And so this is the review. It says, I literally was listening to the raw milk episode while pulling into Sprouts and got to try Raw Farms kefir right after listening to their amazing processing practices. So empowering to know where my whole foods come from and feel great about what I'm eating. Love this podcast and use it as a trusted resource. Also, so excited for Mary to come back on. Us too. We are too.
Yes, she is. She is scheduled for November, folks, so don't worry. Um, Thank you, Leilani. Shout out to you, girl. I know exactly who she is, so
Oh,
I'm sending her a big air hug. Um, but yeah, we appreciate the support.
didn't you have another one? An email or something?
Oh, yes. Let's see.
Okay, so the other thing is, while Christine's pulling this up, the other thing is that if you are sharing the episodes via social media of whatever sort, that also helps people see them, and it helps the algorithms on the podcast platforms
Yeah.
like Spotify and Apple and whatever. I think those are the two main ones at this
Okay. So this woman says she actually sent me an email, like took the time to send me an email. So incredible. She says, I wanted to thank you again for your time and all the knowledge you've been passing along. I somehow found out about your podcast and I just finished listening to your episode with Mark McAfee on raw milk and I learned even more things. So thank you for that as well. And just wanted to send you a note of appreciation. So, yes, of
point.
course.
Cool.
Super appreciative of the love that we're getting in from the ma'am community.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap this one up. I hope you guys enjoyed this behind the mic episode where it's just Christine and I. If you want more of these, let us know. Usually we're interviewing people, but we do like to jump on and just chit chat. And if you guys like that, we'll do more of this.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think about the hearing. Oh, I did want to say um, this is coming out on Wednesday the 9th,
Mhm.
the night before. So we're actually recording this on, what is today, Saturday. We're going to put it out on Wednesday. But the day before Wednesday, Tuesday, the 8th, um, RFK has another like health panel thing that he's put together with a bunch of different people, some of the same people from this other roundtable. And you can watch that. We'll can't, maybe we can link it. I don't know if it'll have a link already or not. But
Yeah.
another thing to watch. I think the more of these things that get watched, like the Tucker Carlson episode, the with Casey and Calley, the Senate Roundtable, that health one that he's doing, the one that's coming out with on Rogan. Rogan's had a bunch of the people that were on the panel on his
Mhm.
show. The
Yeah.
more people that listen to Alex Clark's podcast, the more people that listen to our podcast and Homegrown Education and Wise
Wise
Traditions
traditions.
and all of those things, and the more people that join the Weston A. Price Foundation and come to the conference, like these are ways of showing our government that this matters to us.
Mhm.
So even if we don't have a march, show up at these things, even if it's virtually, listening to them, watching these panels, coming to the Wise Traditions Conference. Like these are things that are making a difference, not only in your own personal life, but they are making waves across the country.
Mhm.
So the more of that that we can do, I think the better.
Amen. And on
Cool.
that note,
On that
peace.
note, see y'all. Bye.